Last year, 1.2 million Americans were told to pack up their desks and go home. Not because of a pandemic, not because of a shutdown, because companies decided they just don't need them anymore. And that's only the first domino. Because when 1.2 million people lose their paychecks, they stop eating at restaurants, they stop shopping at small businesses, and those businesses start dying. Corporate bankruptcies just hit a 15-year high. Over 700 companies filed in 2025 alone. Small business bankruptcies surged 30%. Names you grew up with, Red Lobster, Rite Aid, Party City, gone. But here's domino number 3, and this is the one that should terrify you. Every one of those dead businesses was leasing space, paying rent, keeping a building alive. Now there are $1.8 trillion in commercial real estate loans coming due this year, and more than half of them are not getting paid back. Banks are sitting on a time bomb, and the fuse is already lit. And there's a fourth domino nobody's talking about. This is already showing up at your front door. Mortgage delinquencies are rising. Foreclosures just spiked 59%, and specific housing markets are getting crushed right now. Nobody is connecting these four things together. That's what we're doing today. Let's start with the jobs, because that's where the whole chain reaction begins. 2025 was supposed to be the year the economy normalized. Instead, U.S. companies announced over 1.2 million layoffs, the highest number since 2020 when the entire economy was literally shut down. There's no pandemic this time. There's no shutdown. Companies are just cutting people. And it's not slowing down, it's accelerating. The fourth quarter of 2025 had the highest quarterly layoffs since 2008. Let that sink in. The last time we saw quarterly numbers like this was during the financial crisis. Now, here's what makes this different from past layoff cycles. This isn't just hitting one industry. Amazon just cut 16,000 corporate jobs. UPS is eliminating 30,000 positions on top of the 48,000 they already cut. Salesforce, Target, Nike, Home Depot, the Washington Post. The list goes on and on. Over 5,200 companies announced mass layoffs in 2025. And in the first 50 days of 2026, we're already tracking over 40,000 more tech layoffs at a pace of nearly 800 people per day. So what's driving this? 2 words: artificial intelligence. Goldman Sachs reviewed thousands of corporate earnings calls and found that nearly half of the companies discussing layoffs mentioned AI or automation. Companies are figuring out that they can replace entire departments with software, and they're doing it fast. But here's what the headlines miss. When 1.2 million people lose their jobs, they stop spending money. They stop going to restaurants. They stop buying things at small businesses. They start missing payments. And that is exactly what's showing up in the bankruptcy data. Real quick, if this market intel is helping you make better decisions, hit that notification bell. We drop new housing data every week, and the viewers who catch it first get the best opportunities. The bell ensures you see everything immediately, not days later when the market's already moved. Now, let me show you what's happening on Main Street, because this is where you can see the crisis with your own eyes. I mentioned Red Lobster, Rite Aid, and Party City in the intro, but those aren't outliers. They're the tip of the iceberg. At least 717 companies filed for bankruptcy through November 2025. That's a 15-year high. We haven't seen numbers like this since the aftermath of the Great Recession. Spirit Airlines, Claire's, Joann, At Home. These aren't small companies. These are household names just disappearing from strip malls and shopping centers across the country. But the real story is what's happening with small businesses. Small business bankruptcy filings surged 30% year over year. Subchapter 5 filings, which is the bankruptcy category specifically designed for small business reorganization, grew 11%. Through November, over 2,200 small businesses filed for protection, 8% higher than all of 2024. And the restaurant industry tells you everything you need to know about how bad this is getting. Wendy's just reported same-store sales dropped 11.3%, and they're closing up to 358 locations in the first half of this year. Jack in the Box is shutting down 150 to 200 stores. Denny's closed almost 100 restaurants. Starbucks shut down 400 locations. Red Lobster is reviewing even more closures after already shuttering 130 during bankruptcy. Food costs are up 35% over 5 years. Labor costs are up 35%. Menu prices rose 31%, and customers are still walking away. Now, here's the part that connects this to what we do, real estate. Every single one of those closed restaurants, those bankrupt small businesses, those shuttered storefronts, they were leasing commercial real estate. They were paying rent to landlords. They were occupying space in shopping centers and office parks and strip malls. When those businesses close, those spaces go dark. And when those spaces go dark, the landlords can't make their loan payments. Which brings us to the domino I set up at the top, the $1.8 trillion time bomb. Our staff has been in real estate for years, and this one is the one that keeps us up at night. In 2026, $1.8 trillion in commercial real estate loans are scheduled to mature. And according to Morningstar, more than half of the roughly $100 billion in securitized commercial mortgages coming due this year are unlikely to pay off at maturity. That payoff rate has collapsed from over 80% in 2023 to under 50% now. The office sector is ground zero. Office loan delinquencies in commercial mortgage-backed securities just hit a record 12.34% in January 2026, the highest ever recorded. National office vacancy is sitting near 20%. 1 in 5 offices in America is empty. And the phrase everyone in commercial real estate has been using for the last 2 years, extend and pretend, is officially over. That's where banks kept rolling over bad loans, hoping the market would recover. It didn't recover. Close to $25 billion in CMBS loans are now past their maturity date without repayment, liquidation, or extension. Those are levels we haven't seen since the post-2008 cleanup. Here's where it connects to the banking system. After the regional bank failures in 2023 with Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic, we know that smaller and mid-sized banks are heavily exposed to commercial real estate. These are estimates that nearly 280 banks have dangerously high concentrations of commercial real estate loans relative to their capital. And we already got our first bank failure of 2026 in January, Metropolitan Capital Bank and Trust in Chicago, with 82% of its loan portfolio tied to commercial real estate and private equity. That's not a warning sign. That's the first crack. So think about that chain reaction we laid out at the beginning. People lose their jobs. They spend less money. Small businesses can't survive. They close. The commercial spaces they were leasing go empty. The building owners can't make their mortgage payments. The banks holding those mortgages start taking losses. Domino, domino, domino. And unlike 2008, this time the government already spent trillions on pandemic stimulus. The tools they used last time, near zero interest rates, massive quantitative easing, those are much harder to deploy right now with inflation still sticky and rates still elevated. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase and arguably the most powerful banker in America, said it himself. He warned that a recession could happen in 2026. He called the $38 trillion national debt not sustainable and described it as a tectonic plate that could crash the economy. He said the environment is, and I'm quoting him directly, all inflationary. Government deficits, high asset prices, and pandemic-era crash still circulating. This isn't me being dramatic. This is the CEO of the largest bank in America telling you to prepare. And look, the situation is moving fast. New data is dropping every single week, and we're covering all of it. If this market intel is helping you make better decisions, hit that notification bell right now. The viewers who catch these updates first get the best opportunities. The bell makes sure you see it immediately, not days later when the market's already moved. Now, here's the part we need every homeowner watching this to hear, because a lot of people think this is a commercial real estate story. It's not. It's already showing up in the residential market. The Mortgage Bankers Association just reported that mortgage delinquencies climbed to 4.26% in the fourth quarter of 2025. But the headline number hides something much worse. FHA loan delinquencies. Those are the loans that first-time buyers and lower-income families use. Just hit 11.52%. That is the highest since the pandemic peak. And FHA loans make up only 15% of mortgages, but account for over half of all seriously delinquent loans in America right now. Foreclosure completions jumped 59% year over year in January 2026. That is the 11th straight month of increases. And in November, 609,000 borrowers became newly delinquent in a single month, the largest wave since May 2020. And if you want to see the direct link between layoffs and housing, look at specific markets. Austin home prices are down 6.1% year over year and sitting 20% below the 2022 peak. Tampa has declined for 13 straight months, and Washington, D.C. is the clearest example of all. Federal layoffs from DOGE pushed housing inventory up over 50% in a single year, and nearly 40% of real estate agents said prices are dropping because of those job cuts. The New York Fed published a study this month that confirmed exactly what you'd expect. The counties with the biggest unemployment increases are seeing the worst mortgage delinquency spikes. This isn't a coincidence. It's the domino chain hitting residential real estate. Now, the one thing protecting most homeowners right now is equity. Over 80% of homeowners have 30% or more equity in their home. That's the biggest difference between now and 2008. Most people who get in trouble can sell at a profit instead of going into foreclosure. But that buffer is not unlimited, and it doesn't help the families on FHA loans who bought at the top with 3% down. For them, the storm is already here. So where does this leave you? Because I don't want to just scare you. I want to give you the real picture so you can make smart decisions. If you own commercial real estate, you need to stress test your portfolio right now. Look at your tenant base. How stable are they? Are any of them in distressed industries? What happens if 2 or 3 of your tenants close in the next 12 months? Can you still service your debt? If you're a homeowner, pay attention to your local market. Not every market is the same. Austin, Tampa, Denver, Phoenix, D.C. These are the markets showing cracks. If you're in one of these areas, understand what's happening to prices around you. If you have an adjustable rate or FHA loan, look at your numbers carefully. If you're sitting on equity and thinking about selling, the window to sell at peak prices may already be closing in some of these metros. If you're looking to buy real estate, be patient. Distressed assets, both commercial and residential, are going to start hitting the market in a bigger way as these loans mature, borrowers can't refinance, and layoff-driven forced sales increase. There will be opportunities, but you need to buy right, and you need to have cash or access to capital because lending is going to get tighter, not looser. If you work a W-2 job, don't assume you're safe. Build up an emergency fund. Diversify your income streams. The companies that cut jobs in 2025 are not done. The ones that haven't started yet are watching and waiting. And if you're a small business owner, look at your margins very carefully. The businesses surviving right now are the ones that already cut the fat, diversified their revenue, and aren't over-leveraged on their lease. And whatever you do, think twice before using your home equity to prop up a struggling business, because that is exactly how you turn one problem into 2. Here's the bottom line. 4 dominoes. Mass layoffs feeding record bankruptcies, feeding the biggest commercial real estate debt crisis since 2008. And now it's bleeding into the housing market you live in. They're not separate problems. They're one problem, a feedback loop where each one makes the others worse. The data is right there. 1.2 million layoffs, 717 corporate bankruptcies, small business filings up 30%, $1.8 trillion in CRE debt maturing, office delinquencies at all-time highs, FHA mortgage delinquencies at 11.52%, foreclosures up 59%, Austin, Tampa, and D.C. already cracking. And the people who are supposed to be paying attention are still calling this a soft landing. I don't know what they're looking at, but it's not the same data we're looking at. Drop a comment and let us know which of these 4 dominoes worries you the most, especially if you are a homeowner in one of those markets I mentioned. Share this with someone who needs to hear it because this isn't getting the coverage it deserves. And real quick, if this market intel is helping you make better decisions, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We drop new housing data every week, and the viewers who catch it first get the best opportunities. That bell ensures you see everything immediately, not days later when the market's already moved. We'll see you next time.